Welcome to OSSB Inside and Out, a podcast about staff member and alumni experiences at the Ohio State School for the Blind. Each week, we interview someone from the Ohio State School for the Blind about their experiences. Now here's your host, Brendan Hamblin.
Welcome back to another episode of the OSSB Inside and Out podcast. Today, I've got one of my former technology teachers from the Ohio State School for the Blind, Mr. Dan Kelley. How are you doing today, Mr. Kelley?
I'm doing great, Brendan. Thanks for having me on your show. And a former band teacher.
That too.
Of yours.
That too. You directed marching band for how many years?
2006 to 2012.
So 6 years. You
right.
had your extent, which isn't bad.
No, it was a great time. It was a wonderful experience. Sculpting the sound of the band and working with a great team of people and a lot of great kids and wonderful musicians. It was definitely have some memorable experiences from working with the band.
One of those being the 2010 Rose Parade.
Right.
In Pasadena.
Yep, absolutely. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, that trip. It was a sensational trip from beginning to end.
And then
so we left Columbus when it was freezing cold and got out to California where it was in the 70s and had a great time out there and came back, and it was back into the single digits when we got off the plane. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good time.
I would say so. And then the following year, for 2011, we went out to Seattle, Washington, and
right.
Half of us had an interesting trip getting to Seattle, to say the least.
Right. Well, it was one of those things that just, it's freaks of nature. They never happen, and well, that time it did. That was the trip where I decided I was going to wear suits all week long for my everyday wear.
Right.
And so I just packed everything in a suit bag and threw it on a plane, and we flew through Las Vegas. Never rains in Las Vegas. Well, it was a deluge. A deluge that lasted about 2 hours, maybe 2.5, and everything just got soaking wet. And we lost some luggage and had to get things cleaned up. And I will say the hotel we stayed at, they were great. They were able to get a lot of that stuff sent to their laundry service and came out pretty good. I was able to wear that and represent OSSB well. But yeah, it was a wonderful trip. Wonderful, both those trips. Great. We also went to Michigan that year.
That was Richmond, Michigan, if I remember right.
What's that now?
That was Richmond, Michigan, if I remember right.
That's correct. Yep. Richmond, Michigan. Yeah. So it was great. It's just being involved with a bunch of people that were doing little things and making big differences, and it's good people doing good things. And it was really great to watch musicians grow and develop, and things that they were able to say through their instrument, and be able to transcribe that into other areas of their growth and development as they were coming up as a student. So,
right,
it was some really good stuff.
Now, you started working at OSSB what year?
Well, I came to OSSB in '97. I started that fall as a substitute teacher. So I was going in and out of all the classrooms here for a couple of months.
Nothing wrong with
October. Yeah, October, I believe. And the math class was the first classroom that I subbed in. That was my first day. And then it's all history from there. And I came on in February of 1998 full-time, teaching Braille and teaching technology. So we were doing all the old Braille and Speaks and Open Book and JAWS, and I'm trying to think if we had Zoom text back then, or if we were using something else.
Right.
But we were using JAWS. We were using JAWS for DOS, for typing on the typing programs, and we had Windows 95 running JAWS 3.2, I believe it was, and now they're on version 20.
Well, that's a big old throwback to Windows 95, and we're on Windows 10 now.
That's right. Yeah. So my room was upstairs. It was the old typing room. Miss Picard and I shared a classroom right above the gym, and walk in there, and they had these big dividers up between the tables, so each workstation was set up like a cubicle.
Uh-huh.
And we did a lot of large print typing. We did a lot of translation of Braille into print into Braille, that kind of thing.
So basically what Braille production does now.
Yeah,
to an extent.
And I had a few classes that, they were robust enough in their skills that we would go out in the community and talk to restaurants and asking them if they would like a Braille menu, and they'd say sure. And I'd say, well, just give me enough money for a box of paper,
right?
And we'll make it happen. And I'd make a project out of it with the kids, and I'd have somebody reading the menu and somebody typing the menu, or we'd scan the menu, whatever, depending on what we were doing. And we'd emboss the Braille menus, make the large print menus, and somebody would collate and put them together, or somebody would put labels on things, and tried to fit everyone in that niche wherever possible. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, there were some great projects back then doing that kind of stuff.
And you've done sports. I think you've had your fair share in helping out with all sorts of sports.
Right. One thing about working here at OSSB is that, it's very fortunate for me that I've been able to have a ton of great experiences doing a ton of things. I started helping Jeff Shaw with wrestling in '98, and that was going very well. And in 2004, we started looking at goalball and getting involved in that, and I was able to be part of the group that set up goalball as an NCASB sport in 2005. So, we had to look at all the rules and see what we wanted to adopt from USABA, and, what we wanted to make our own NCASB rules and that sort of thing. So it was great to be part of that. I used to go to a lot of those athletic directors meetings and get that done. Get the NCASB website started, which I don't think it's going now, but so we would try to keep everybody's stats updated and the results of the meets updated and things like that.
Right.
But and also I used to take kids to Close Up over in Washington, D.C. I did that for about 5, 6, 7 years maybe. That was always a good time, going over there, going through the airports and flying and traveling around Washington on the subway and showing the kids how to navigate that, and if you get lost, how to solicit aid and that sort of thing. So
right.
It was good. It was a good time doing that. And I coached forensics for a while too, which I really enjoyed that, man. I love finding those kids that really could read fluently and fast and put them in a prose category, and finding the kids that were great at impromptu speaking and getting them matched up in that category, and, finding the kids that could memorize anything,
right,
and, having them do the 4 or 8 minute speeches where they had to memorize the whole thing. So, just like I said, just a lot of incredible experiences with a lot of incredible people has really, shaped my teaching career here, and it's just been very valuable over the years. So I've been here, this is my 23rd year at this point.
And still going strong.
Yeah, I think so. Going strong. We're doing different things now, and
technology.
My kids came along, and I stepped away from band because it was a huge time commitment, and
right.
My kids are a huge time commitment as well, and you're got to be there for your youngins. So
yep.
But the band program is going strong, as you know.
Yep, I know.
I've also stepped away from coaching as well. I still get over in the gym and help out a day or two a week, if I'm needed. And
right.
Doing a lot of things with technology now. We're starting a new technology initiative this year where it's a one-to-one technology solution for all of our kids, K through 12. They're going to be using some type of technology solution. So we're going to start that off with an iPad as a foundational device.
Right.
And for some kids, that may be their only device, but some kids need a lot more than that. So they may also have a laptop and a note taker, or, a braille display, or, some sort of switch to use their iPad as an augmentative communication device. So we're very excited about that. We started planning this beginning of this year into last year, and we're going to start rolling it out in the spring. So each staff is going to get new technology as well.
Cool.
And, so we're going to start that at the end of the first week in March. Staff getting their stuff first, so they're comfortable using that. And once they're comfortable, we're going to start rolling out new technology for the students, probably in April, and kind of do a pilot run from April to the end of the year and see what's working well and what needs improved,
right?
And go from there.
Well, it sounds like OSSB's keeping in the 21st century, so to say.
No doubt. They are keeping in the 21st century, and, we're getting away from how we used to do things in terms of, you save everything on the old curriculum drive.
Yeah.
And, now we're getting into cloud-based services like, Google Classroom and, Office 365 and OneDrive and Dropbox and that sort of thing. So
right.
We're plenty excited about that because these are skills that we need when we leave OSSB and go out in the workforce. So
right.
we
Exactly.
need to be able to go out there and, and have those skills to navigate those different types of environments and solve those problems that you're faced with, the challenges that you get, in using 21st century technology. So,
right.
So very, very exciting stuff. After school activities have definitely been on the increase for the last 2 or 3 years. There's a gazillion clubs that kids can get involved in now.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, anything from knitting to golfing to we're at a podcast club. We're doing a Braille Challenge, after school Braille Challenge club. There's a cooking club. There's just a ton of things. There's like 20-something different clubs that are going on all year long. They go from 3:45 until 8 o'clock at night. So,
and I mean,
it's very.
And I mean, the school's got the space for them, so why not put them to use or put those spare rooms to use?
There's a lot of space,
especially since we only use part of the old or original building. So,
hey, go ahead and pause that 1 second. I'll get my class going here.
Will do.
And okay, so there's quite a lot going on up here at this point, and still growing. I think of when I think of any organization or school or company, I'd rather it be like a river than a lake.
Right.
It's like when you're in a river, the water is constantly moving and flowing, and with that, it's going to bring you new things, and it's also going to sweep some old things down the stream, right?
Right. Exactly.
And, and some of the old things are strong enough to, get an anchor,
right.
that they're going to stay. And some of the things that are just kind of flotsam and jetsam, they're going to go away on downstream. So,
right.
That's kind of think that's where we are right now.
So, what are you doing besides teaching at OSSB? Keeping busy with your kids and whatnot?
Yeah, there's a lot of whatnot. First and foremost, I'm a dad. I got a 13-year-old and a going on 10-year-old, 2 boys, and we do a lot of things together. We camp and do a lot of outdoor activities. This past weekend, we went on a ski trip to Pennsylvania and New York, and that was a really good time. My oldest really loves to snowboard, and my youngest is skiing now and loving it, and doing some things with the Scouts and, involved in that. And other than that, I work a lot. I got, when you want to do a lot of things and you have a lot of things, it costs money to do that. So
right.
If you're going to spend money, you got to make money. So
exactly.
Currently, I'm working probably 5 jobs right now. So I work here at OSSB, and then I teach a class at Ohio State, and I do private contract work for a couple of different agencies in the state for OOB and the I Can Connect program, and I teach a class for Shawnee State. So I stay pretty busy. I usually work about, I'd say, anywhere between 65 and 80 hours a week. And I love what I do because everything that I do, I'm helping somebody
in some
grow.
way.
Yeah. It's because most of what I do is teach people how to use technology, teach them how to use that iPad with VoiceOver or that computer with JAWS or, the iPhone with a Braille display.
Right.
And, some of my clients are deafblind, and, they are learning how to text, and, they're communicating with people in different ways, and it's really neat to have that experience and to be able to contribute to helping them, grow in that way. And I learn a lot about teaching through working with all types of different people, and those are experiences that I can bring back here, to help here at OSSB
and incorporate with the students.
Share with my colleagues and my students, and we all just kind of grow together.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Since I forget where I was going to go with this. Hate when that happens.
You'll find it. Yeah,
I know.
You'll find it.
It'll come.
Yeah.
Technology has advanced so much since you were talking back in 98 and 97 when you first started. It's
right.
amazing
right.
what we can do now, as opposed to what we could almost, 20 years ago, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you can incorporate technology in just about all aspects of your life. And I don't think technology by itself is the answer by any means,
Right.
I've been quoted saying, in maybe not so appropriate moments, that, good tools don't make you a good carpenter. But there's a lot of truth in that. If you give somebody, all the tools they need to build a cabinet, they're not going to be some kind of, great cabinet maker,
Right.
You got to develop the skills to use those tools. And just like with technology, all technology is a tool, right?
Exactly.
And you got to have the skills to use those tools, and you got to have critical thinking going on, and you got to have problem solving going on, and you got to be able to figure stuff out to get things done. But and that's how our teaching has changed. We're not open up the book and write down these words and learn what they mean and be able to regurgitate definitions. Now we're looking at, okay, you have all these facts, or you've got all these definitions. Now, what can we do with them? How can we present them in new, meaningful ways? And how can we make new, meaningful problem-solving, critical thinking connections?
Right.
That's kind of where we are now, because since technology has evolved and has advanced so much, that, I always tell people, it's so easy to be a person with a visual impairment or somebody that's blind now than it was 15, 20 years ago.
I'd agree with that.
You're not limited. Yeah, you're not limited by transportation. You know, you got Uber and Lyft. You've got your public transportation where you can look up when that next bus runs, or you can reserve that curb-to-curb transit service, you know, using your technology.
Right.
You're not limited on when you have to go to the grocery store. You know, you can, like all the time, I use Quick List from Kroger. I live very close to a Kroger, so I can order my stuff online. And say, okay, I want it to be ready between 7 and 8 p.m., and, you know, I can just swing by there and pick that up on my way home.
Right.
You know, or order things from Amazon or Walmart or wherever, you know.
Right. Most of the shopping is done online anymore. Most of the small, locally owned businesses, unfortunately, have gone belly up.
Yeah, and that is the drawback to that. You know, to this sort of, you know, our whole society going for the convenience factor, is that a lot of smaller businesses are getting eaten alive by that, and there's still a few around. There's a hardware store that I go to in Clintonville on a regular basis because, you know, if I need a little hinge for, you know, a cabinet door, I know I can find it there. If I need a roller for a screen or whatever, I can find it at the hardware store. But, you know, for everyday stuff, I'm like everybody else. I'm going to get online and, you know, I order stuff from box.com because I've got, you know, my boys are growing and eating like crazy, so I need to buy things in bulk. And, you know, they just deliver it right to your front porch, and, you know, it works out great for me. And, you know, the Uber and the Lyft, I absolutely love it. I started using them in 2014 when they came to Columbus. And it's such a time saver. Such a time saver. But, you know, that stuff costs money. You know? Right. It's not as expensive as taxi cabs or anything like that, but it still costs money. So, you know, if you're going to spend that kind of money and you want to live that kind of life where you have those conveniences, you've got to get out there and work. You know, you got to get out there and make the money, and, you know, have it before you spend it. You know, I use technology to manage my house. You know, I pay all my bills online. I get all of my bills by email. There's no paper. Right. I can use my bank to write somebody a check. You know, do that through an app or do it online, and, you know, just make sure everything's secure. And, you know, go with it. But yeah, I love the advancements that we've made in technology as far as just the things you can do, and also, you know, the things you can teach. Exactly. You know, I've got a kid that, I got a kid that has some significant reading disabilities and writing disabilities, you know, as a result of having a reading disability. So, you know, he can use the dictation function on the iPad with notes and, you know, generate lists of things that he wants to write down for other people, and, you know, be able to share that with them. And, you know, you got voice control that you can use now, to control your iPad and things like that. So there's just a number of things as far as teaching and learning goes where technology has just been monstrously beneficial in terms of helping out our kids.
Yes, it has. And technology's even made it so radio stations, having worked from experience for the past, well, it was almost 3 years up until they let us go, some of us go.
Right.
But I saw the advancement of us part-time board ops being in running, say, Indians games, to us not coming in to run Indians games or OSU games or Bengals games or what have you. It all runs itself.
Everything's, it's done on the computer. It's done with a program.
Yep. Exactly.
So you have to step up and learn how to run the computer programs or program the computers to make it happen. Right. I mean, you have to find yourself a new niche.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I mean, you know, most of the jobs we have now, you know, everything is evolving and everything is changing, and that's why I say, you know, look at things as like a river versus a lake. Right. You know, there's no time to be stagnant. You know.
Right. Everything's changing.
Yeah. Right, and you gotta keep with the changes and keep flowing with the changes. and which will help you maintain some job stability, and it's all about that problem solving and critical thinking piece.
Exactly. And I know OSSB is working on updating the history book, or...
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we are working on that, updating it from 1997 to the present, because this will be like the third edition of the history book that's coming out. And we started this project at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And it's not going to just be a straight up book. It's going to be a compilation and a work of art, so to speak. We have somebody from the Ohio Arts Council working with us. Her name is Claudia Redder, and very creative artist. And so we're taking her input, and we are doing a lot of research and talking with a lot of alumni, and
right.
we have our album in the Ohio State School for the Blind Facebook page where people can get in there and post photos and get in there and kind of tell their story and share their memories about their time here at OSSB. And all that stuff, we want to make it a part of this presentation, this historical presentation of the school.
Right.
That we're putting together. And we're going to have public exhibits of this. I know we're going to do it at the State House and a couple of other places. There's one of the libraries we're going to set up at as well. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but it's been exciting to do that. I've got a lot of those recordings that Rock Basil has put together. He took a lot of the old reel-to-reels that were recorded, from the 60s, 50s and 60s and 70s, even up to, I think, 1981, 82.
Yeah, I think it's up through the early 80s.
Yeah, digitize those.
Right.
And so we're going to include some of that. And we have a pretty rich history of jazz here at the school, which is kind of neat. We know we got Rashawn Roland Kirk.
Right.
There was a number of guys that were playing some great jazz in the mid-50s and 60s that would put together these combos, and they could really tear it up. They sounded great.
And then a lot of that history can come from the OSSB history book that's from 1837 to 1997. So
it can, but I'll tell you, the way the book is written, I'm not trying to take anything away from the book at all.
Right.
It's great that it's there, but it's a hard read.
Yeah.
It's like, one of these things, that evolve and change. I mean, we don't write like that anymore, and we don't read like that anymore. And I think you're right. It's, taking some things out of that book and relaying it in a more modern perspective.
Right.
Is something that will be part of this as well. But the focus will be primarily what's been going on here in the last 25 years, where the last one left off.
Right. And there has been a lot that has changed between then and now, going from the school building that book ended with to the school building that we're all in now, so to say.
Yeah. And that whole right. And that's. You got to have that kind of change.
Right.
You can't stay in a bubble.
Right.
You can't stay locked into a box forever.
Even if some days you just want to, but you can't.
Right. But
doesn't work like that.
Life is about growing, and if you're not growing, you're not living. Part of growing is changing. And,
right.
This, a lot of people have different views on the new building and, whatnot. Of course, it's not the old building. Right.
It's not the one we all remember.
But, this old building wasn't the building that the folks who graduated in 1952, remember, you know.
Right. Exactly.
So when you think about it in that context, then, you know, makes it, I guess, more bearable for some people, I would think. I don't know, but you know, this building, I love this building in terms of, you know, my computer room has a ton of electrical outlets where my old one didn't.
Right.
And that makes things a lot easier for me to get people connected, you know.
Exactly.
We have a Wi-Fi that, you know, is pretty strong in this building, and it's kind of spotty in the old building. So,
Right.
You know,
as I remember.
Yeah, everything has pros and cons to it.
So, overall, OSSB is a family environment first. Well, it's kind of tied with education, but you walk into OSSB and you get an overall family vibe from everybody. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you know, part of it is that we're a small, tight-knit community, and due to the nature of being a small, tight-knit community, you work very closely with people day in and day out, you know, staff and students alike. And,
right.
You know, and if you're worth your salt in any job, you know, you care about the job that you're doing, and as part of that, you care about the people who you're working with or who you're working for, and that makes you want to do your job even better than what you do.
Exactly.
You know? But yeah, I mean, it does have a family atmosphere. Most residential schools like ours, you know, I would say the majority of them do have that same type of vibe. You know, people working close together, people helping each other out, and you know, it can be very encouraging, and you know, you want people to put their best foot forward, and you know, keep doing their best, because you know, the happier that people are, the better off it's going to be for, you know, the kids we're working with, because you know, we're working for them.
Right.
Know? We are working for them, and we want our kids to leave here to be successful. We want them to be, you know, employed in some way, shape, or form. If college is for them, that's great. That's what they need to do. If, you know, going out of here and getting a job right after school or going to some sort of trade school is up their alley, that's, you know, that's what we want for them.
Right.
You know?
And I know,
you know, my thing is that I want each of my students to realize what their potential is.
Exactly.
And once you do that, you put another rung on the ladder.
Right.
Because, you know, like I said, part of living's growing, and part of growing is you're always reaching. You're always putting another rung up on that ladder, something to reach for.
Right.
You know, staying a little hungry, right? That's how you're successful, right?
Exactly.
Right. So, absolutely, definitely a family vibe here.
And then I know when I was approaching my graduation day, I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, you were crying and carrying on, I remember.
There were some tears, but...
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that do that at graduation. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But, right, it's like leaving home. You know, it's like leaving home for a lot of folks. And
a lot of folks, OSSB
yeah,
is their second home, so, including me.
For some, it might be their first home, you know.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I know...
Nothing wrong with that.
And I know after I graduated, I went directly to the Ohio Media School for radio and TV broadcast. And I got a job up here at WMRN in Marion. Right. And worked here for almost 3 years until they let the part-timers go back in January. So that was, and working here was and still is my dream job, so to say.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like you still have a good relationship with them. They're able to get in there and record your podcast and that thing, and that's good. That's good, you know, because, you know, the flip side of having all the skills that you need to, to get a job and to have a job and to do a good job is the flip side is networking and having those people skills and knowing it's who you know. And
right, exactly.
It's networking with those people, because that's a big part of how you advance from one job to another. So that's great, man. I think keep that going, and doing a great job with your podcast too. So
thanks.
That's good. Yep.
I've been trying to think of some other segments to add, but maybe a OSSB history or questions from the listeners or what have you. But slowly been working on that. Still floating around up in my head, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of, not letting your show become stagnant where you're, rehashing the same thing with a different person every week. And,
changing it up a little.
Yeah, changing it up, getting a little spark going, and, we talked about doing the trivia question thing.
Right.
I've got sort of thing,
and I've got a whole cart wall of sounds or sound bites, so anything from Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets to Bugs Bunny and the Looney Tunes. So
gotcha. Yeah, well, that might be apt descriptors for who knows what.
Right.
But yeah, it's the podcast is a great way to reach out and connect a lot of people together. We started the podcast here in 2017, I want to say. I think the first episode was December maybe of 2016 or January 2017.
Somewhere in there, probably.
When was the first month that you guys started the podcast? October of 2016. Right. October 2016. It started down in the vocational department, and it was kind of geared toward, posting one topic and talking about that topic, and kind of throwing the conversation ball around, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then I took it over the next year. And I thought, man, it would be kind of neat to do like an audio newsletter of what is going on here at OSSB, showcasing things like the band or athletics or,
or the concerts.
The concerts or things the leadership team are doing or projects that teachers are doing in their classes and things like that. And I thought, why don't we do that? And let's do an hour a month. I did an alumni focus because, the goal was for me is to get the community more connected.
Right.
Get the alumni, piping some information back into the school about what they're doing. And that's a good model for our students to listen to, our current students to listen to as they're coming up.
Right. The alumni to listen to.
And it's good for the alumni to hear what's going on with the school because, it's very easy to make a judgment about what's going on somewhere when you're not informed, right?
Right.
If you're not getting the information, then it's really easy to say, well, man, there's nothing going on up there. Well,
right.
Of course you would think that because you're not
in the loop.
What's going on. So, right. So podcast is one way to keep people in the loop. And the other part of it is, I still have this strong urge to do things with music. And, because that was my first career choice is to be a band director. And, so I love messing with music and composing music and putting it together and taking it apart and that kind of thing.
Right.
So on a podcast, you don't use copyrighted material. So I told the kids, I said, if you want music, we're going to have to write our own music. So I think the first podcast I did, we used iPhones and Victor Reader Streams and note takers to make our recordings.
Uh-huh.
And I used studio recorder on a computer and edited it down and, got it published. And since then, we've sort of grown. Still use the iPhone. I'm getting some Olympus digital recorders in a month or so. But I got a mixing board, and I've got 4 mics that, people can come in and talk into the mics, and that's hooked up to a computer now.
Right.
We're using a MacBook Pro, which the first computer I had was a Mac Mini from 2008, and it was slower than anything. And actually, I had one of my students rebuild it for me and put some extra RAM in there, and get it a little faster.
Right.
But now I've got a MacBook Pro, and we're using Logic Pro to do all the music stuff and special sound effects, and we're using GarageBand too.
Right.
We're using GarageBand too a little bit, but GarageBand. Yeah, we used to use a lot of GarageBand on the iPad and iPhone too. Not so much now because it's a lot easier to do it on a computer. It's more accessible.
Right.
As well, but podcast is growing and it's being listened to. I can't say enough about how much we appreciate the support that we get from not only here in Columbus, but all over the United States and about 5 or 6 different countries. And I looked on there, and in Wellington, New Zealand, they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 plays from Wellington, New Zealand, and that's phenomenal. To be able to have the things that our kids are doing to be showcased on a global scale.
Right.
It's a testament to, just what we're doing. It's worth listening to. And so I appreciate everybody that tunes in to our gig every month. And actually we started another one. We're doing 2 podcasts now. We're doing our regular OSSB podcast, and then we're doing the Podcast Club podcast. So that one has to do with residential life and things that are going on in the residential program. And that kind of is spearheaded with the after-school podcast club.
Right.
And, that's which I started doing that this year in, I want to say October, November, something
If I
like
remember
that.
right, I
We're
think that...
we're getting ready to release the 3rd episode next week. So, and it's, it brings in folks that normally, I guess I would say that normally wouldn't be doing the podcast, or they don't have time to do the podcast.
Right.
They normally just have, like 3 or 4 kids that I work with during the school day. So the OSSB podcast kind of, takes care of what's going on during the school day, and then the podcast club, it's a little less formal, and we do things like storytelling, and we've made commercials. Let the kids say, you come up with an invention, and we may not make this invention, but you get to do a commercial to sell your invention, to get people to want to try your invention. So that was kind of neat.
Kind of like a radio spot.
Yeah, exactly. And then, we work on interviewing skills. Where the kids will interview each other. I've got a couple of kids that are, they cover special events or field trips that they're doing in the residential program. So, if you ever need material for yours,
right,
more than willing to borrow anything from the stuff that we're putting out, because, as far as I can tell, it's part of OSSB, and I don't have a copyright on it.
Right.
But yeah, I released a thing last month. You can get, if your podcast is, well, if you have the A-Lady, like an Alexa,
right,
Amazon device, you can now get your device to tie into podcast services like Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio. I think iHeartRadio's on there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, iHeart's on there.
I was listening to the Apple Viz podcast one day, and guy was on there, and he was talking about, I'm going to show you how to play the Apple Viz podcast on your Amazon device. I'm like, that sounds pretty good.
Right.
So I listened to it, and I set mine up, and I say, I bet you could do that with the OSSB podcast. So sure enough, I got my Alexa hooked up with Apple Podcasts, and there it goes. It's, I said, play the Ohio State School for the Blind podcast, and boom, it started playing the latest episode. So I was happy about that.
Right. And I've tried to get my Alexa to play my podcast through iHeart, but I know it's on iHeart, but Alexa apparently can't find it. It'll play it through Apple Podcasts, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, as long as you're getting it, I think that's the main thing.
Right.
What I'm telling people, as long as you're getting the content out there. I could, I've thought about it. I could push it out, to multiple platforms. I'm doing Apple Podcast and SoundCloud right now.
And you guys are also on iHeart. Well,
and we're on iHeart now.
You guys are on iHeart up until November. The latest episode on iHeart is November, so I'm not sure what the issue is there.
Three favorite chimes. Yeah. So I'm dismissing a class with my favorite line. It's my 3 favorite chimes, because the bell rings 3 times, and they say, "What's your 3 favorite times?" And I say, "OUT." Time to get out. Right.
Right.
So we like to have fun, man. It makes learning so much easier when you're having a good time.
Exactly.
So,
and I see my podcast as kind of an extension to your guys's, because you guys only interview students and alumni, correct? Current students,
alumni, students, staff. This month, I'm going to have 3 guys on from Humanware that came out, and I've had people on there from Hims Inc. and some other vendors that we, use for technology and that kind of thing, and just talk about what's new with what they're doing. And but it's mainly our staff, students, and we, I try to do that alumni focus in some kind of way every month.
Right. And I try to do former staff and alumni too, so it's kind of all bunched in together, 2 separate podcasts, but what are you going to do?
Well, that's great. I think you're doing a good job with what you're doing,
and I'm having fun with it, so that's a plus. And iHeartRadio, or WMRN, is hosting my podcast for free, so how much better can it get?
That's right. Yeah, it's all about that networking.
Right. And I've had my foot in the door here at WMRN for as long as I can remember. Grandpa worked here from 88 to 06 or 07, so these guys, those who are left, not very many anyway, saw me grow up from a baby to now, so.
Yeah, that's good to have that history and that kind of longevity. And,
exactly. All right. Well, I think unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I think we will wrap it up.
No, not really. I don't have anything else to add, but I just want to say thank you for having me on your show. And it's different being on the other end of the mic, I guess. And
right.
But it's always good to get on and talk about the school, and I've certainly had a lot of fortunes here. At my time, and I think I'll have plenty more to come before I leave.
Right.
But it's always a good time to shoot the breeze about OSSB and talk about all the great things that's happened here and are continuing to happen today. So thanks, Brendan, for having me on, and look forward to hearing many more great episodes from your podcast in the future.
Thank you. And I will do OSSB's podcast a favor and put the link to your guys' podcast in the description of this episode. So,
oh, that's great.
If, for the listeners who want more OSSB content, check the description of this episode. It'll be down in the description.
Yeah,
and
I'll do that. Yep, I'll add yours as well to our show notes, and just keep spreading the word.
Right.
Right. That sounds good.
So stand by. I'm going to wrap it up, and we can chat for a couple seconds after or what have you. So,
all right, sounds good.
Until then, well, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook by searching OSSB Inside and Out Podcast. We're the only one that pops up. Make sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for coming on this week, Mr. Kelley. It was great chatting with you. And until then, bye for now.
Thanks for joining us this week on OSSB Inside and Out. Make sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching for OSSB Inside and Out Podcast. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.